So today we are going to talk about cash flow. What does that actually mean? It's a term that's thrown quite around quite often, especially if you start meeting with financial planners or if you are chatting to some of your colleagues and your friends and they all talk about cash flow and how to be better at it. Today we're going to look at the exact definition. I'm going to share a couple of tips, how to be more tax efficient. I'm going to share some of the tips how to play the money game, all right up next.
This episode of Money and Medicine is proudly sponsored by the PPS Health Professions Indemnity. For more information on PPS, please do go on our website.
So before we start delving into cash flow and what exactly that means, I want you to read a book by the well-known author Robert Kiyosaki, and it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad Guide to Investing. This is one of the very first books that I've ever read, and it helped me to understand the basics of cash flow, and it helped me to understand some of the definitions, what it actually means, as well as how to incorporate that into your financial situation. Now, if you look at the word cash flow, it's important to understand that cash flow originates from an income. So as a medical doctor, your income, let's say you're an intern, will be X amount. By the time of this podcast, roughly interns in South Africa earn about 43,500 Rand after taxes. So let's say for this example, that will be your income. That income can go to one of three places. It can either go to what we call an expense, it can go to a liability, or it can go to an asset. Now, I want you to imagine this as being a game with 4 quadrants. The one quadrant is the income quadrant, which is, as we said, the origin of cash flow. The second quadrant is where this goes to an expense. The third one is where it goes to liabilities. And then lastly, where it goes to assets. Now, most people that we meet, specifically if we start sitting with medical doctors, they've got an issue where they don't know where their money is going. They're not really budgeting. They've got no assets to show, but yet they earn quite a big income. And the problem is that that income is deteriorated by mismanagement of money and not understanding cash flow as well as this game of money. Now, what a lot of people do is as the income column starts going up, as you move into a registrar position or an MO position, or you go into the private space, what people tend to do is they tend to move up liabilities and expenses. Now, expenses is utilities, cost of living. So let's say groceries, the type of clothes that you wear. You used to always do groceries at Checkers, but now all of a sudden everything is going through Woolies, which is fine, by the way, but people get caught up in this rat race where as income goes up, these two other columns tend to go up as well, and by the age of retirement, they've got nothing to show in the asset column. Liabilities is often overlooked in the sense that a lot of people think they're actually an asset, but Rich Dad Poor Dad also speaks about that, where a property, as an example, is actually a liability up until that property can put money into your pocket, and only then will it be defined as an asset. So your liability column is typically bonds, credit, liabilities that you've formed, maybe student debt that's there. And it's important to understand that the quicker you can deteriorate that quadrant, the quicker you can start populating and moving it over into the asset column. Now, the game of money is simple. You got to try and channel as much of your income through to the asset column without getting caught up in the other two. And this can be done in various ways. Firstly, by being tax efficient. So as an example, let's say you've got 100 Rand and that 100 Rand is taxed in the income column. Obviously, expenses will be taxed and you'll lose a lot of that cash flow in the expense column, and not too much can go through to your asset column. But let's say you introduce something as a retirement annuity where you can actually reduce your taxable income. First of all, you will still be taxed on this income, so a portion of that will go towards taxes and the expenses. You will then divert whatever is left in a retirement annuity that will go to your asset column. But at the end of the year, when you submit your tax returns, you will actually get a rebate on that money, which again is a form of income, and that money can be paid back into another form of asset. So hence, it's a hack that you are using to try and channel more of your money through to the asset column. Now, let's quickly define what an asset means. Now, an asset can be various things, but at the end of the day, it's something that puts money into your pocket with your absence or that complements that. So in other words, it will either replace your income or it's something that will complement your income. And this can be anything from paper investments. We've got a couple of things that we will quickly unpack into exactly what that means, but it can be paper investments, bricks and mortar, physical assets, property, business that you start, whatever you can define. As soon as it will replace the income column, it can be defined as an asset. Now, the game of money is the quicker you can do this, you can actually financially retire or get to a work optional lifestyle where you work really just to enjoy it and really to be the person that you feel you've been called to be, and then complement that lifestyle with assets that's generating passive incomes. Now, a couple of tips that's also going with this episode. This is some of the tips that we've sourced from various books, from various authors that we've read, that I want to share with you guys. And the three main topics that always come through is assets by assets. So as soon as you start populating your asset column, use some of those assets to buy more assets. The second point is money is a game of doubles. So if you're buying assets to get more assets, the goal should be to double up on net worth. So let's say you've got R1 million worth of assets. The goal is to get that to 2 million, to get that to 4 million, to get that to 8 million and 16 million. And if you look at it, you're actually just a couple of moves away from being at the position or the place where you actually want to be. And then as you're getting into this game of doubles, it's important to start doing it at a closer proximity. If something took you 2 years or 3 years or 4 years to double up, the goal would be to try and do that half the time, or at least 25% quicker, whatever the case might be. And then lastly, it's to start small. So I think most of us, when we look at somebody that we are inspired by, that person, we don't understand all the hard work that went into that. That person started small and they build on that exponentially, and over time that created wealth, it created assets, and before they knew it, they got into this dense time frames where they're actually getting more done and building their asset column quicker. So to recap, first of all, it's important to understand that cash flow originates from income. Income can go to three places, and look at it from a quadrant perspective. It can go to expenses, liabilities, or assets at the bottom. Then from there, it's important to play the game where you channel as much as you can to your assets by limiting expenses and liability. And this can be done by effective budgeting, being tax efficient, being cost efficient, knowing exactly where every rand is flowing and preserving that wealth, making sure that you're not splurging anything unnecessary. And then lastly, the three tips is, first of all, assets by assets. Money is a game of doubles, to try and double up. And lastly, start small, start somewhere. Put away a little bit of your money every month, pay yourself first, and then build exponential wealth over time. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If this is the very first time that you are watching one of our episodes, I want you to check out some of the other content that we've done on www.moneyandmedicine.co.za. You can go to Instagram, social media. We've got pages where we also share valuable information. The purpose of Money and Medicine is to be an unbiased platform specifically for medical doctors. There's a stigma that medical doctors don't know anything about finances, and we want to change that. The stats are scary, and this is the United States. So as per the US data, 1 out of 4 people in the United States of America are financially literate. 1 out of 4. I would imagine that number is actually worse if you look at countries like South Africa, Turkey, Brazil, where unemployment under youth in the youth area is more than 50%. So let's just assume conservatively that number is 1 to 5, 1 to 6 is financially literate. Under medical doctors, it's probably close to double that. So 1 out of 10 medical doctors is financially literate. So we want to change that number. We want to move it up so that every single medical doctor, at least in South Africa, will be at a position where they know exactly how to manage their money, they know exactly where every cent's going, they understand cash flow, and they can actually combine the clinical with the business. I also want you to watch 2 episodes that we've done specifically for you. This episode that we've done on retirement income. So you're watching this episode, you're close to retirement, you don't know what to do with the capital that you've generated. Watch this episode where we speak about retirement income, and then watch this episode where we speak about the cost of not investing. Just keeping your money in a current account will not do it. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hit that thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, the alert, so that you get more content for future. And until next time, plan the plan.